They were negotiating a truce, though not on that day, for it was a Sunday, and Alfred was on his knees in a makeshift church made from another sailcloth, and all his nobles and thanes were arrayed behind him, and some of those men turned as they heard our horses' hoofs. Odda the Younger was one, and I saw the apprehension show on his narrow face. He was kneeling very close to Alfred, suggesting that he was high in the king's favour. A priest, one of the many who always accompanied Alfred, hurried towards me. He had red hair, a squint, a palsied left hand, and an expression of astonished joy on his ugly face. "Uhtred," he called, "we thought you were dead." "Me?" I grinned. "Dead? You were a hostage." I'd been one of the dozen English hostages in Wareham, but while the others had been murdered by Guthrum, I had been spared because of Earl Ragnar, who was a Danish war chief and as close to me as a brother. "I didn't die, father," I said to the priest, whose name was Beocca, "and I'm surprised you did not know that." "How could I know it?" "Because I was at Cynuit, father, and Odda the Younger could have told you." I was staring at Odda as I spoke, and Beocca caught the grimness in my voice. "You were at Cynuit?" he asked nervously. "Odda the Younger didn't tell you?" He said nothing. Nothing! I kicked my horse forward, forcing it between the kneeling men until the press of worshippers made it impossible to advance further, and then I stared at Odda as I spoke to Beocca. "You didn't describe Ubba's death?" I asked. "He says Ubba died in the shield war," Beocca said, his voice a hiss so that he did not disturb the liturgy, "and that many men contributed to his death." "Is that all he told you?" "He says he faced Ubba himself," Beocca said. "So who do men think killed Ubba Lothbrokson?" I asked. "We can talk of these things later," Beocca said, "but for now, Uhtred, join us in prayer." He used my name rather than calling me Lord because he had known me since I was a child. Beocca, like me, was a Northumbrian, and he had been my father's priest, but when the Danes took over our country he had come to Wessex to join those Saxons who still resisted the invaders. "This is a time for prayer," he insisted, "not for quarrels." But I was in a mood for quarrels. "Who do you think killed Ubba Lothbrokson?" I asked, and when Beocca did not answer, I provided the answer for him. "You think Odda the Younger killed him?" I could see that Beocca did believe that, and the anger surged in me. "Ubba fought me man on man," I said, too loudly now, "my sword against his axe, and at the end he was dead." My voice had risen until I was shouting, and the distracted congregation all staring at me. Alfred, reluctantly, stood and turned towards me as his wife, the pinched-faced Aelswith, hissed into his ear. "Is there any man here," I shouted, "who will deny that I, Uhtred of Bebbanburg, killed Ubba Lothbrokson in single combat?" There was silence. I was staring at Odda the Younger, and some looked to him for a response, but he was struck dumb. "Who killed Ubba?" I shouted at him. "This is not seemly," Alfred said angrily. "This killed Ubba," I declared, and drew serpent breath. And that was my next mistake. In the winter, while I was one of the hostages given to Guthrum, a new law had been passed in Wessex, a law which decreed that no man other than the royal bodyguards was to draw a weapon in the presence of the king. The law was not just to protect Alfred, but also to prevent the quarrels between his great men becoming lethal, and I had broken the law so that his household troops were suddenly converging on me with drawn swords, until Alfred shouted for every man to be still. I could see the anger on his face. He had a narrow face with a long nose and chin, and a thin-lipped mouth. He had not lived 30 years yet, but looked closer to 40. He was painfully thin, and his frequent illnesses had given his face a crabbed look. But there was an undoubted authority in his eyes. They were very light, as grey as mail, unforgiving. "You have broken my peace," he said, "and offended the peace of Christ." The tent was the king's private chapel, and Alfred made me wait there a long time. Then 2 men entered. One was Ethelwold, the king's nephew, who should have inherited Wessex's throne from his father, except he had been reckoned too young. He gave me a sheepish grin, deferring to the second man, who was heavy-set, full-bearded and